Hello, friends. This is John Klein III with episode 189 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, your premier Kitty Pryde Lockheed and Magic podcast. And today we're going to review Wolverine by Chris Claremont, Black Panther Volume 4, Issue 31, and then the rest of the comics that came out last week. So let's get into it. And we're trying out um, a different laptop. So hopefully everything's gonna look nicer, sound nicer. Episodes are definitely not gonna get cut off now because this thing has plenty of memory, whereas my last laptop, Windows just keeps trying to update and it just doesn't have room for anything else that isn't Windows, and then it doesn't even have enough room for Windows. So we are using this laptop, which should be pretty nice. And let's get into these books. So Wolverine by Chris Claremont's a retro series that publishes the other original work from the Paragon collection that we got the X-Men Days of Future Past Uncanny 140.5 issue from. And this was one of those, if the project got enough of a Kickstarter goal, they would have made a brand new Wolverine story. And this is that story we got. And it takes place roughly around the Uncanny X-Men 172, 173, where it's the failed wedding to Miracle, and Logan. And I imagine it takes place soon after the Viper Silver Samurai battle. And clearly Sabretooth's like, oh, Logan's getting married. I better kill him, as is his wont. And but yet before the wedding, because no one seems, exhausted from the first battle, but not sad that the wedding's off. And it starts off with Sabretooth fighting, and it's a pretty nice like Sabretooth versus the X-Men story where can one character take out an entire team? Like, probably, as we see it happen here. Sabretooth's on his way. Miracle saves herself, which is pretty cool. And then Rogue goes in to tackle Sabretooth, and he clearly has done his homework, so he knows all about how their power should work. And so he rips off one of Rogue's gloves and then forces her to touch Colossus. And because her power isn't, she has no control over her power. Like she touches him, and then boom, immediately knocks them both out of the battle. And then Kitty Pryde shows up to save Miracle, and Lockheed's there. Lockheed burns Sabretooth like a couple layers off of his flesh, which is pretty cool to see. And Kitty's just thinking like, "Oh, Lockheed, you look like you're enjoying this." And I sort of feel like I'm enjoying it as we get this little hint of what the inner Kitty that Ogun brings out. And uh and then Sabretooth pretty much chokes Lockheed out almost immediately after being flamed, and he tempts Kitty with knowledge of that she has an inner Shadow Cat, which is classic Chris Claremont having a villain named the heroine and tease out this deep inner well of angst and violent tendencies, which Logan has to later admit, like, yeah, I sense this about her too, but I didn't think I thought we could sway her one way or the other. And Storm's like, you should have told us, which is awkward because then when they come back from Kitty Pryde and Wolverine and she's going by Shadowcat, you think Storm and Nightcrawler would have been like, oh, Shadowcat, we're not dissuading this? Or clearly after this story, Logan must have told her like, "Oh yeah, Sabretooth thinks you have a shadow cat in you," and she's like, "Okay." And then finally realizes like, "Oh, this is a moment where I could rebrand myself. I've gone through something with Ogun. I am Shadowcat." But it's just a cool like short comic, and Storm lightning bolts Sabretooth, and he hints that Storm also has inner inks about her, and but it's mostly just a cool moment in time for Kitty Pryde. I love Claremont's in a whole Kitty Pryde moment. I do, and I know this came out years ago. Like people had this story. Cerebro did a whole audio play about it, but it's oddly timed now to be like, hey, Claremont's Wolverine Kitty Pryde miniseries is ending. If you like that, you might like this. Whereas this is leading up to her being called Shadowcat, and like that miniseries is dealing about the repercussions of her being, dealing with Shadowcat and like, reclaiming her mind, and now we are just gonna have to see where that thing ends. But it's like, all right, like one thing's retro or post or pre, and then this is uh Wolverine and Kitty Pryde's post Ogun, and so he's gonna make a nice little trilogy. Which I always thought the trilogy was the Frank Miller, Chris Claremont Wolverine, Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, and then the Kitty Pryde Shadow and Flame miniseries by with Paul Smith, who I love, the legendary Paul Smith, and where I get half the podcast name from, or 2/3 of the podcast name from. And we just threw magic on there because yeah, I love those three. And so yeah, that was Wolverine by Chris Claremont, which I was a huge fan of. It was my book of the week. And then to celebrate Wakanda Forever, that I believe all episodes are out. Oh no, no, all episodes are out at once. The first, because it's only a 4 issue series taking place, I don't know, 100 years earlier. I'm forgetting, but it's a pretty good cartoon. I imagine there's no way to tie that into any proper live action projects, but at least um it's part of the lore now, it's part of canon, and just if you want a cool animated Black Panther Wakanda series, no, here you go. Presented as such. And so then we're gonna review Black Panther Volume 431, that if you want to read along, I've posted videos on both my TikTok and YouTube channels, Jackal SII. And then I gotta pick 4 images from this to promote the podcast's socials, which is S&FwM. And this came out in December 2007. It would have cost you 299 pennies or 375 cans. It's rated T plus. And we get a little previously on. Unfiltered by the yoke of colonization, the African warrior nation of Wakanda flourished and became a high-tech, resource-rich, ecologically sound paradise, one that makes the rest of the world seem primitive in comparison. Ruling over the kingdom are the Black Panther and his queen, Storm. At the conclusion of America's superhero civil war, T'Challa and Ororo found themselves in desperate straits. On the losing side of the fray, at odds with Wakanda's ruling council and without an embassy in the United States. However, their luck seems to change with Reed Richards and Sue Storm offered the couple residents in the Baxter Building in their place in the Fantastic Four. That's right, because the Superhero Registration Act does pass. And then it takes Fear itself to bring it down. Yeah. Desperate to keep a negative zone. Yeah, because then Captain Steve Rogers becomes the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then reverses it. Desperate Desperate to keep a negative zone monster who had invaded the Baxter building from running loose in New York City, T'Challa took a risk and used the unreliable magic of King Solomon's golden frogs to take the fight elsewhere. While the gamble did pay off and the team was able to extract the bug from the Baxter building, they ended up somewhere in a far more perilous. On a squirrel homeworld in an alternate reality, one under attack by some familiar looking zombies. Eager to evade the jaws of the zombie Gactali, like multiple Galactus, Galacti. The Fantastic Four called upon the Golden Frogs once more, hoping they would be able to escape the planet before the obliteration. And then we see the familiar looking zombies. And then and this is called Dead or Alive Part 1, brought to us by Reginald Hudlin, the writer. Pencils and inks by Francis Portella. Colors Val Staples. Letters VC's Corey Pettit. Cover by Billy Tan and Frank DeMarta. Assistant editor Daniel Ketchum. Axel Alonso's editor, Joe Quesada, editor-in-chief, and Dan Buckley, publisher. And T'Challa wakes up on like a paradise of sorts with a gold yellow brick road as he's following Storm into the jungle. And then all of a sudden he comes across a site that he wishes he never saw, but has probably had many fears of of Storm and the incestual nature of the X-Men, where we see her being fed by grapes by Yukio. Logan satisfied in the back, Rogue and Gambit are all over each other, and then Colossus is hovering over Kitty Pryde. He's like, "Welcome, what are you talking about? What is this? We're the X-Men, darling. Did you think all these powers were just for beating up bad guys?" And there's an ad here for the first Transformers movie on DVD, and then Spider-Man 3 also on Blu-ray. Like, do those exist in the same time period? That's just weird. Seems weird. And so everyone's inviting him into this love nest. Emma Frost shows up in her classic White Queen outfit, which seems more of a T'Challa issue than a Storm issue. And then Emma kisses T'Challa. And then we get Kitty Pryde in the very bottom of the panel with the roar. And I think I'm going to definitely use the team picture for one of the images. And then this would probably be the other one where the Panther god shows up and is like, "What is this madness?" And it's like, yeah, what is this madness? But new reaction drop. And then Storm says, "X-Men, we are under attack." And then a cool moment where Kitty's phasing through Colossus to get into the battle. And what is the god's name? Ba, is it? Bal? And T'Challa is trying to tell her to stop. This is sacrilegious. And then in a fun sequence, T'Challa slaps or face pushes Emma away, and then Scott shows up to be like, "Hey, you can't do that." And then he shoves Cyclops down with a splutch. And then Logan's like, "Nice one, always wanted to do that." But then realizes like it's cool that you did that, but also not cool you did that because Scott's an X-Men. Too bad for you, he's an X-Man. You're not, and we always take care of our own. So that'd be the third image. And maybe I just use the cover for the fourth. Probably should, right? To show people like this is where the comic's from. And then T'Challa realizes that this is not real. How could it be? And then he's back on the golden um bridge, and we see what's going on. Psycho Man is having the Fantastic Four as prisoners. Storm's slowly waking up, and then we see that she's saved by her deceased father-in-law, um T'Chaka, which is cool. And T'Chaka kills Psycho Man. And Storm's fully awake, but then she wakes up from this. And oh hey, there's an ad for Marvel Seen It. We actually own that. Pretty fun. They should make a new one of those. But I guess most people don't have DVDs anymore, so then they gotta figure out a way around that. And then everyone's starting to wake up except for Johnny, but Ben Grimm's there wearing his shorts. I always like my thing in boots. And uh Black Panther is awake. He catches Johnny. Psycho Man's just withering on the ground. They confess their love for each other. They start making out, and Grimm is just like, "Whoa, oh boy, Ove? Yeah, Ove, right?" And she says, "But later we need to talk with your relatives." Same here, but regarding your association with the guys, man down here. And then Johnny's still not waking up, and Halo 3 apparently is coming out. They made some toys to tie into it, or action collectibles. Oh, replica weapons to use their official terminology. And so now they want to escape. One of those golden frogs shows back up to teleport them. And they do, and now they're in like 1920s Marvel, which I really like that. Well, I like the 1920s Marvel of the Sabretooth Dead Men Don't Tell Lies. Something like that. It was Frank Thierry, which I was enjoying until it became more of a Sabretooth miniseries. But if Frank Thierry just wanted to do a 1920s Marvel, I would love that. And then the issue ends with them, the gangsters, gonna take them to the arena. And that was Black Panther Volume 4, Issue 31. Um, and now I'm all out of Black Panther comics, so if you ever want to, so I think I own like eight of them officially, something like that. Like three issues were for sure the lead up to the wedding of the century, and then three more. Yeah, and then those are the Black Panther titled series. So what else came out last week? Let's make sure we're still recording. We are. Oh yeah, Ultimate Wolverine 8. Um, they're looking into rescuing mutants, which is always great. Ultimate Sprite, which I still don't understand how copyright's like. Yeah, that's fine with us. Ultimate Sprite, Gambit, Red Guardian, who I sort of forget was around, Black Widow, Agent Brand, or Commander Brand, excuse me, Beast, and the Wolverine. They get in there, they see a pile of dead bodies. Sprite phases through and then unlocks the door and gets them all in there. And we see that War Warren Worthington Angels has killed all these people, and which is awkward as he's clearly in his Archangel like motif with the metal wings, but Mikhail Rasputin's going by Ar Archangel already, so it's like, why would you even use that name if you're literally introducing Angel into the next issue? But I don't know, here we are. And we know this is a 12 issue series, so this is issue 8, so four more to go. And so Arc or Angel throws his metal talons. It phases through Kitty, and it's just one of those real time moments where you read something, you're just like, "Oh, is Kitty gonna die?" Because honestly, I've been liking this new universe. I think it's 6160 is the new Ultimate timeline, whereas the other one was like 6106. I don't know. It was a clever use of the 616, and. And like I've not been buying every Magic appearance, but I'm really committed to getting every Ultimate Sprite appearance. And it's just like, oh man, and once she's dead, I'm done with this timeline. And yeah, and so she doesn't die, but we do lose Bran and Beast, and it's like we just keep losing our beloved characters. And hopefully Kitty just survives it. But and Logan has this weird opinion of like Angel's too far gone, he can't be saved, and it's like, buddy, they saved you. Like, does he not trust the process? Like, should we be worried that if Warren can't be saved, Logan ultimately can't be saved himself? And so I imagine that's gonna be one of the many things we deal with. And then there's the ultimate end that this is all leading in up into. So, and we'll have to see how much Sprite's involved in that or magic. And it'd just be better if we just had a local comic book store where on Wednesdays I could just go and buy these books and have everything just be nice and tied up. But Unfortunately, like all the comic book stores for me are like Kelly's Comics in Great Falls, which I love, but it's an hour and a half one way. Bozeman has, oh, what's it called? I know Billings has Splash Page, and Billings is like 4 hours away. Let me type in. Bozeman has Rook's Games, which I've been to years ago, but hopefully we're going to Bozeman soonish and check that out. Um, and that's like an hour and 45 minutes. And then Missoula is 2 hours away, and they have Muse Comics, which is great. Um, Splash Page in Billings. And I want to say they have another one that was like a more of a like a thrift store with a comic book, but a great comic book section in the back for like back issues. I wish I had more time to shop there last time we were in Billings. And Billings is like 3 hours one way. And you feel those last hours. Like, I don't know, it's just a long time. And then Helena has White Knight, which is great for back issues. And the Golden Girls has section in their thrift shop run by Rob. It has like a mini store inside a store, and that's pretty great store too. But it's just it'd be nice if there was just one here in town that, Wednesday evening I can just stop by and pick up books. And then pick up other books. And yeah, so Ultimate Wolverine 8. And so we're just oh, and the scientist that worked on him that works for the Eurasia, the magic and Colossus partnership with Omega Red. She realizes Logan's alive now, and they're gonna, get him back, is their plan. And then we have Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe one last time 5, which magic just shows up once, the magic from the previous issue. And she's just on the recap page, which has a fun gag of, hey, do we need a recap page if the previous page is already a proper recap page? And it's like, yeah, probably because in a trade, they wouldn't have that recap page. But then also in a trade, do you even need a recap from the 2 pages you just flipped? Comics are an odd medium. Just like how I keep thinking at any minute now we're gonna get the Batman Deadpool promotion going, even though we haven't gotten the Deadpool Batman in October, but then in November they reposted it and kept showing and we got the final 3 covers with Rogue and Poison Ivy, Psylocke and Huntress. But I'm like, you gave me Magic and Catwoman, so I'm done with getting covers. But any minute now, we should be starting the Deadpool or the November solicitations. So we're not any minute. Today's the 10th. So yeah, in 2 weeks. But it's like, man, I'm excited for Marvel DC crossovers. Like, I'll get them, especially in this world of variant covers where it's like maybe we can get them, like any character you'd imagine. Which I still want them to get that Samney, Whisper and Saint and Lykeman. DC has a Jewish character in Gotham in an alternate timeline called Whisper, and I would just love for her to get paired up with Kitty Pryde and Lockheed, as that would be perfect. And she has a fun dog companion, and that'd be my dream DC Marvel crossover. Like give it a 8-page story, it'd be amazing or Uncanny. One World or Doom 6, where it's a big debate about Doom and Reed, and we find out that the way Doom is so powerful is that he's taken every person in Latveria into little cages and has taken their life force to become even stronger in the magics, because all magic requires a sacrifice, and we're led to believe these are volunteers, but can you be a volunteer in a dictatorship? I don't think so. Oh, I'm sorry, a monarchy. And issue ends with him ripping apart Richard, so we'll see if that sticks. And Ultimate X-Men 18 says Peach Momoko and Zach Davison. Um he said on Blue Sky he doesn't do a translation. It's more of a what do you call like Chrono Trigger from Japan to America. It's a regionalism, localism. And I love Chrono Trigger, so that was my go-to reference to video games. And which honestly, I mean, I was gonna say Sony, but the company that owns Chrono Trigger, they just want to make an easy $1 billion. Just give us a proper remake, or do what the Final Fantasy VII and just give us the a three-part Chrono Trigger game, and I would love that completely. But I don't know how that would work with all the freedom you have to travel through space and time, or not space, but time at least. And yeah, like I don't know, just well, it's like how Konami can make $1 million by just releasing the X-Men arcade game again. Like, just give us the games we want. And then Uncanny X-Men 19, pretty great issue. The mayor wants to build a X-Men block and have like a trampoline park for the Nightcrawler fans. Jubilee's going to have like an arcade section. They talk about how the X-Men market well to straights and gays and hornies and pretty fun. Uh, that's a fun moment where like, yeah, the X-Men are loved by all. And then we get a tie back or a tie-in from the Free Comic Book Day issue, which I like because Jubilee makes a reference to her dragon son Shogo and how the X-Men have another dragon as well. I'm like, hey, a Loki reference. That's all I want from comics. And the mercenaries don't think Jubilee is a danger, which is crazy as she throws fireworks from her hands or just explosions from her hands. Like I don't know, every July 4th and New Year's Eve, as much as I hate fireworks, I'm always do a silent prayer, like hope people keep their fingers into out of the holiday. And which might just be my anxiety as well as my unenjoyment I get from fireworks. So I was like, yeah, like fireworks, I don't know, they're so expensive too, which I know some places here in town were doing for 4th of July was like spend $10, get $5 worth of free fireworks, and I'm like, all right, um, like that's what you gotta do. And I don't know, it's just like it's so expensive. It's what well, I was never tempted to smoke either, but with like a pack of cigarettes, it's $10. It's like I'd rather buy two comics for that price or have lunch. I don't know. Everything I equate to is like, how much is that in lunch money? And and so she defeats the mercenaries, and Becca Calicchio references how yeah, and Deadpool and Outlaw show up, who are beloved characters Gail Simone has written in the past. And Becca throws a fire arrow through Deadpool's head, which is like, does she know about Deadpool's healing factor, or was it like, oh, I'm glad I didn't kill you right there? But she tells him to get away from her girlfriend Jitter, and Jitter has a little heart over her head. And I'm just like, oh, I love Jitter so much. Um, and yes, it's an unfortunate ship name where it does sound like cat litter, but it's it's not. It's called Jitter. That's what the fan base is calling them. We love them. And so, yeah, those were the comics of last week. I would highly recommend Wolverine Bright Curse Claremont, Ultimate Wolverine 8, Uncanny X-Men 19. If you had to do like a top three. And then next week, another big week, we have Magic 8, which has that Daughterman costume gallery cover that I want so badly, but I haven't seen anything on eBay that's cheaper than $50. And I'm like, I'm not paying $50 for that. Which is crazy, as I have the Daughterman Cyclops cover and I spent like $8 for it. So I'm hoping once the issue itself comes out that there's just gonna be reasonable prices for it, but like I don't know why it's so expensive. Then Laura Kinney Wolverine 9, which has Gabby back and Jonathan, the most real Wolverines. X-Men 20, which the preview page has Cyclops and the Federal guy like arguing with each other still, where it's like, all right, you two get a room. That's not like a grocery store. Predator Kills the Marvel Universe 1, which they marketed the third issue being the X-Men issue, but I'm definitely going to be checking to see if Kitty or Magic show up, and then it'll be an instant purchase for me. Uh, Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion 3, which Magic's in 4, so you would think maybe the final page reveal will be 3. Um, and oh, and Spider-Man Wolverine 4, which I feel like 3 just came out 2 weeks ago, so I don't know. So like super excited about Magic 8 for the collection, and we'll see how the rest of it goes. And maybe X-Men 20 is building towards the Age of Revelation, but we'll have to find out. And so, everyone, that was episode 189 of Shadow and Flame with Magic. Thank you so much for listening or watching. Hello to you on YouTube. And tell a friend. Love to keep getting the podcast out there. And thank you so much for listening. And I'll talk at you next time. All right, everyone. Bye.